She got violent and actually pushed me and grabbed my hair. The police were called and Linda was arrested for assault. John was in shock. He couldn't believe how far his mom had gone, and for the first time he saw how toxic her behavior really was. He went to visit her in jail, hoping to talk some sense into her, but she refused to apologize. She told him that he was making a huge mistake and that he would regret choosing me over her. John was heartbroken. He knew he had to make a choice, but it was tearing him apart after a long conversation. John finally decided that he needed to cut ties with his mom for the sake of our marriage and his own happiness. It wasn't an easy decision, and I could see how much it hurt him, but he knew it was the right thing to do. Moment. But the cashier, who had overheard, chuckled awkwardly as she handed us our drinks. Linda wasn't done, though. She looked over at a group of women sitting by the window, all dressed in stylish outfits that seemed to catch her attention. "Now look at that," she said, gesturing at them. "That's what you call chic. It's nice to see some people still know how to dress for the occasion, don't you think, dear?" she added, looking at the cashier for agreement. The cashier was clearly uncomfortable and just nodded before quickly retreating behind the counter. I felt my face burning red with embarrassment. John shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. He glanced at, with an apologetic look. I was left feeling humiliated. As time went on, it felt like she was trying to push me out of my own relationship and take over as the woman of the house. I tried to stand up for myself, but John would take his mom's side every time I did. He'd say things like she's just trying to help, or, she means well. As the weeks went by, Linda's intrusions into our lives only grew more intense. It was no longer just about her controlling John. She had started to extend her reach into every aspect of my life, too. It started subtly at first. During one of her frequent visits, she casually mentioned that John should be eating more vegetables, suggesting that I should prepare healthier meals for him. "John used to love my spinach casserole," she said with a smile. She often implied my cooking wasn't up to par. The message was clear. I wasn't feeding him properly, and it was my responsibility to fix that. But it didn't stop there. One evening, as I was getting ready for a date night with John, Linda unexpectedly dropped by. She took one look at my outfit and pursed her lips. She asked me if that was what I was wearing on a date with John, though it wasn't really a question. She then went on to suggest that something more appropriate would better suit the evening, like a more conservative dress, or something else classy, rather than the outfit I had chosen. I was left standing in front of the mirror, suddenly second-guessing my choice, even though it was something I had felt confident in every other time I wore it. The final straw came one night when Linda stayed over after dinner. We were saying our goodnights when she casually mentioned that John always performed best at work when he got at least 8 hours of sleep. She said we both should be in bed by 10. Her tone made it sound less like advice and more like a command. I could hardly believe it. She was dictating my bedtime as if I were a child who needed to be told when to go to sleep. I began to dread her visits. I knew they would come with another round of criticisms and suggestions. It was like living with a dictator. The worst part was that John didn't see anything wrong with it. He thought his mom was just being caring and concerned, but I knew better. She tried to control every aspect of our lives, and I was fed up. Finally, I told John he needed to choose me or his mom. I didn't want to do it, but I couldn't live like this anymore. I told him that I married him, not his mom, and that I wasn't going to continue in a marriage where she controlled everything. John was devastated. He tried to convince me that we could all get along and that I just needed to be more understanding. But I stood firm. I told him that if he didn't set boundaries with his mom, I was done. John agreed to talk to his mom, but when he did, all hell broke loose. Linda was furious. She told him that he should never choose his wife over his own mother, and she even threatened to cut him off if he didn't do what she said. John was torn. He loved his mom, but didn't want to lose me either. He was stuck in the middle, and it was tearing him apart. Linda started spreading lies about me to our friends and family, saying that I was trying to break up the family and that I was driving a wedge between her and John. One evening while I was cleaning up the kitchen, my phone buzzed. It was John's cousin Sarah. She mentioned she'd heard some things from Linda and wanted to check if they were true. My heart sank as she told me everything Linda had claimed was true. She said I wasn't taking care of John properly, cooking the way I should, dressing inappropriately, and keeping him up late, which affected his work. I explained the situation and how Linda had been overstepping and imposing her expectations on me. I could sense Sarah's discomfort, but she seemed to understand by the end of the call. She even called my work, making false complaints about me. I got called into my boss's office and was told that there had been some concerning reports about my behavior. I was blindsided. I'd always maintained a strong work ethic and had never received any negative feedback before. As my manager continued, it became clear that the complaint had been detailed and specific, citing supposed issues with how I interacted with colleagues and handled my responsibilities. The kicker came when they mentioned that the complaint had originated from a phone call. It was someone claiming to be a concerned family member who wanted to ensure I was performing at my best. It didn't take long for me to piece it together. As a result of the complaint, I was required to take a mandatory workplace conduct training course. It felt like a slap in the face, being forced to sit through a class on skills I knew I already had, all because Linda had decided to poison the well at my job. She almost cost me my job, and I was terrified. That's when I decided to get a restraining order against Linda. I knew it would be a drastic step, but I didn't know what else to do when I tried to see